Welcome back to the Strength and Speed Podcast. Before we get to our show, let's have a quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Health IQ. Health IQ uses science and data to secure lower rates on life insurance for health-conscious people. So if you're a runner, a cyclist, a strength trainer, or an OCR athlete, like you probably are since you're listening to this podcast, and you don't have life insurance, I would hit up Health IQ because they offer discounts for being healthy. What you need to do is you need to head over to their website, healthiq.com/SASP for Strength and Speed Podcast. Once you get over to their website, you're going to have to take a Health IQ quiz, and that's going to see if you qualify for lower rates on your life insurance. Plus, you can get additional savings by submitting actual data, so things like race results, Strava, Runkeeper, or any other application that you use to actually track your fitness. 56% of Health IQ customers save between 4 and 33% on their life insurance. So if you're with another life insurance agency and you're not taking advantage of all the fitness work you're putting in on your spare time, then you need to switch companies right now. Car insurance companies give you lower rates for being a good driver. There's no reason that health insurance companies shouldn't give you a lower rate for being a healthier person by doing things like training, running, lifting weights, and participating in our favorite sport, OCR. You don't have to be an elite athlete to qualify. You just have to be the type of person who's putting in a little bit of time and effort to make yourself healthier. And if you're listening to this podcast, chances are that's you. So head on over to healthiq.com/SASP and see if you qualify for lower rates today. Thanks for the information from Health IQ. Brenna will not be joining us. She was bombarding me with excuses tonight as to why she can't make it. I think her dog was giving birth, and then she had to take care of some stuff on the farm. I don't know what's going on. Bottom line, it's just me, except I have a special guest here. I have Kevin Righi. Before I let Kevin say hi, I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. So kind of growing up, he's a 3-sport varsity athlete, lacrosse, football, and wrestling, played D3 lacrosse, became a certified personal trainer in 2011, started doing CrossFit closer to 2013. So then got into OCR. You probably know his name from Tough Mudder X. So he came in third at the televised Tough Mudder X on CBS. He's also been involved in obstacle course racing since 2013. Specializes in events similar to Tough Mudder X, so things like Civilian Military Combine, Spartans Stadium Series, stuff like that. So he's had some pretty good finishes over the year, including a 4th place at OCR World Championships 2014 in his age group, which was 20 to 25 at the time. So, Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Evan. Excited to be here. I
skipped over a lot of stuff in your bio. You had a lot of awesome stuff there, but it is great to have you, and we've been trying to get you on for probably, a couple of months now. So
I know. Sorry, work's just been kind of crazy, and my schedule's, I'm all over the place between work and CrossFit and coaching and all that. So excited to finally catch up with you, and it's been, I think you and I, we met way back at Worlds 2014, first OCR Worlds?
That's correct. So I definitely need to give you a personal thank you. So back in 2014, I'm like, all right, I'm looking to have a competitive team, and I randomly post on the main group. Rusty Palmer ends up replying and is like, hey, I know this guy named Kevin, and I was like, I never heard of him. Oh, I didn't know anyone at the time because it's 2014. And he introduces me to you. You did super well at the original OCR World Championships. And then on top of that, when we became Facebook friends, I realized that people are actually Facebook friends with people they don't know. Because you were friends with all these OCR people. And I was like, does he know every single one of these people? Because I was social media, social media introvert before that. So because of you, I was like, oh, you can just request any OCR people to be your friend. And that's cool. So now my Facebook's all public and stuff like that. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
But then a bigger thank you was, fast forward a little bit, and I've barely put out any articles, and I'm like, here I'm gonna write this book on obstacle course race training. And Kevin was the one who introduced me to pretty much everyone in the back of the book, minus Hobie Call. I think so. Everyone, if you read Strength and Speed's Guide to Elite Obstacle Course Racing, Kevin was the touch point for all those people, and he basically put in a good word for me, and they agreed to participate in the book because of him. So again, thank you so much.
No problem. I was happy I could help out there.
Yeah. So what we want to talk about today is a lot of TMX stuff. So for those of you who were paying attention when TMX went off last year, it kind of sprang up last minute. They said they're going to have an event. Basically, a month later, they're filming, and all these great athletes are competing. And most of the podium, I would say, people recognize, right? So, like, Hunter McIntyre, Ryan Atkins, Cassidy Watton, Corinna Coffin. Like, I think we're all very, very familiar with those names. And then in third place was a guy named Kevin Righi. And I was, like, so excited to see you up there. I was just super excited because you're definitely a good OCR athlete, and you're a good CrossFit guy, but like I feel like that event was built for you.
Thanks, Evan. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, kind of like you said, it was a really quick turnaround, and props to Tough Mudder, man. I've been part of a couple of those, televised events now, and a lot of them have been in the works a lot longer than I guess TMX was in the works, or that we knew it was in the works, and they pulled off a fantastic event. So I just want to give a shout-out to the entire Tough Mudder crew and team there and CBS for pulling that off. It was great. But, yeah, I was made known of it through, I think, actually, Tim Sinnett, Rose Wetzel's husband, like, pinged me on Facebook, was like, hey, you should check this out. And I was like, oh. Like, I looked at it, read the description, and you had to apply for it, right? And they asked for, like, your best obstacle course racing and stuff finishes, and I don't have any, great OCR accolades to my name, so I've had podiums, in Spartan and Battle Frog back in the day and stuff, throughout. And, a top 100 finish in the CrossFit Open last year for my region, which I was proud of, but again, I'm not going to regionals as an individual, and I'm not a CrossFit Games athlete, so it's like I don't have any great accolades, so I just submitted and was actually shocked that I was even chosen to go on the show.
Awesome. So before I want to dive deep into Tough Mudder X this episode. Before we get into that, let's start off at the beginning. Like, how did you get into OCR?
So OCR kind of came the summer of, first ever OCR I ever did was 2011. I did a Tough Mudder at Wintergreen in Virginia. A bunch of, like, my fraternity friends and my one good close friend from back home was like, hey, Kevin, we should go do this. It's like military stuff, running in mud. You get shocked. There's an ice bath you jump in. Like, this is totally you, because I was always kind of like the more fitness-minded guy, but at the time I was doing most of my training was more, your bodybuilding kind of splits, back day, chest day, arms and leg day, stuff like that. But I had stopped playing lacrosse at the time, so when I heard about that, I was like, oh, man, this seems really cool. I went and did my first Tough Mudder, had a blast. And then I was like, all right, I'll do one of these a year. That was kind of like my thing. Like, I just want to, like, stay in good enough shape that I can complete a 10-mile military-style course like that once a year, but didn't really have any goals. And then I found CrossFit in January of 2013. I actually learned CrossFit before that when I was at Christopher Newport playing lacrosse, and our strength and conditioning coach was having us do CrossFit workouts, and at the time I thought it was really stupid. I was like, 7-minute workout, like, that's not enough. Like, you got to go and do another hour in the gym. And so that was me more being very ignorant at the time, I'd say. And quickly, once I kind of reformatted my thinking in 2013, and that kind of happened after I saw the CrossFit Games on ESPN, it was like a New Year's resolution. I was like, I had this men's fitness magazine, and Rich Froning was on the cover, and they had a week of Rich Froning's training in it. And I was finishing up senior year of school at the time at Virginia Tech. And so we had a nice gym, nice facility, but like no bumper plates, no rings, no ropes to do rope climbs. So I did what I could, but I copied his training from that magazine, starting in January 2013 as like a New Year's resolution. Like, all right, I'm going to give CrossFit a try for 90 days. And then if I don't like it, I'll go back to my normal stuff. Well, within those first 30 days, I noticed exponential gains in just performance, both strength, gymnastics wise, and metabolic conditioning, running and stuff, just by following this week programming of Rich Froning that was in, I think it was like Muscle and Fitness magazine, on repeat every week. I'd just do the same thing and try to add some weight to the barbell and try to do a couple extra reps on Cindy and stuff. And that kind of led me into 2014, just really focusing on CrossFit and doing a couple of competitions that led me and my ex-girlfriend at the time into obstacle course racing. It just seemed like a natural like crossover, and the sport really took off for her. And so through her doing it, I was kind of around it more. And so I started dabbling in it as well and noticed that I was doing kind of decent, like nowhere near the success that she was having. But, top 20 finishes, top 15, top 10 finishes in a lot of the races. So then I started, mixing up my training where it was a mix of CrossFit and then a mix of like running and more OCR style training, I would say.
I'm gonna interrupt real quick.
Yeah.
Let the audience know who your ex-girlfriend is.
Oh, well, it was Corinna Coffin. And so, so like summer of 2014, the sport just exploded for her. And, she did like, I think 3 sparring races and then like 1 Battle Frog and like a Mud Guts and Glory. So like maybe a total of 5 races in the course of like 6 weeks. And then trained for another like 3 weeks back at school and went up to Vermont and took second in the world's at Spartan Race World Championships that year. So like out of nowhere, right? And so this just exploded onto the scene for her, and through her doing it, it kind of just dragged me into it. Now she has a much more robust endurance background, running since she was very little. She was cross country, like all state in high school. My background's a lot different, where I played team sports my whole life. Never really did an individual sport except wrestling for 1 season. But I was always more team sport focused, played lacrosse in college. So kind of going out in this OCR world where it was just like, it's just you, right? There's no teamwork really. There are team events, but for the most part, it's just you, and learning to kind of do that. That was a whole different mindset to get into. But, so she dragged me into it and just kind of been involved with it, ever since. It's been kind of an up and down year, or years, I'd say, where part of the year my focus has been like, okay, I'm going to train for OCR. And then the other part of the year is like, okay, we're going to train for the CrossFit Open. So we like spike our training for like OCR with heavier running. And then when it was CrossFit season, it was kind of like, okay, go work on the Olympic lifting and all the gymnastics movements and all that stuff. But overall, I'd say it was perfect training for when TMX came out, because we had the fitness aspects of what TMX required, cleans with a sandbag, shoulder to the overhead, the kipping pull-ups and all of that stuff. But then we had the running and metabolic endurance from OCR training and like the grip strength and knowing how to maneuver obstacles and all of that. So it was kind of like a perfect combination of the two, whereas at least for me, my training has always lent it to be like, I'm good, I'm fit, right? I can go out and I'll finish a lot of the races, like, or pretty much all the races, and finish decent, top 20, top 30 in a lot of them, but I'm not up there with the top guys in the sport, not even close. Same thing on the CrossFit side. Finished CrossFit Open top 1% in the world, which is great, but there's 300,000 people in the world, so top 1%, there's thousands of people still that are better. And you're so far from the top echelon of people, Rich Froning and Matt Frazier, that you're good in both, but you're not great in either. And I think Tough TMX, when that was announced, it was kind of a great mesh of the two sports, and really a different type of athlete, something I like to call like a hybrid athlete. You're strong and you're fast, and you can maneuver over obstacles and all that, but you're not a specialist in any one thing.
Yeah, that was great, and I expected you to do well. I did not expect you to do as well as you did. So that was, again, super exciting to see how well you actually did at Tough Mudder X. And it sounds like your training in the past has been fairly periodized, so, focusing on strength for a while, then focusing more on cardio. So moving forward, what's your training plan going to look like? Are you going all in on Tough Mudder X in 2018, or are you still doing a lot of CrossFit, or what's the deal?
Yeah, it's a good question. To be honest, I haven't really given it a lot of thought. There's a lot of people in this sport that do it professionally, right? And I'm not one of them. Part of me wishes I could, but then the other part of me, kind of wishes I'm happy with what I'm doing. I work a full-time job. I'm in the office about maybe 45 to 55 hours a week, depending on the week. I mentioned to you right before you got on, I'm going on a 2-week trip to Asia. not for personal, but for business travel. That's at the end of April leading up to mid-May, and I have no idea how I'm going to be able to train, what the hotel gyms are going to look like over there or anything like that, food. So right now I'm just kind of in a phase, I'm 27, focused on kind of building my career. I'm still training hard, so CrossFit Open starts this week. So we'll see how that goes. Personal goal is to finish top 100, and then once the Open's over, we'll see, if we can send a team to regionals or not. If we do, that'll be the focus. If not, maybe I will shift my training a little bit more to TMX. Haven't really given it that much thought. I think it is in Virginia this year, actually, the championship event, which is kind of nice. It's more local for me. But, honestly, Evan, I haven't given it a lot of thought. I'll probably still do it, but I think, last year going into it, I wasn't training for it at all and just went in, and CrossFit training prepped me really well for it. And so I think I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. If, after the CrossFit Open hashes out and there's no next step for that for our team here at CrossFit Reston, maybe I will kind of, do more TMX training that involves, sprint running, going into 15 reps of something, followed by some grip intensive movement, hanging from bars, rings, etc. But honestly, I don't know yet.
Okay. Well, I hope you put some more thought into it, and I do hope you do well at CrossFit, but at the same time, I want to see you back out on the TMX course. So may you have good success in CrossFit, but not too much, and then you can switch over to TMX and crush it over there. Now, I know this year they changed the format a little. They're doing like regionals in order to qualify for the finals. So have you even looked at where the other regionals are in order to make it to the finals?
Yeah, I think there's one down in and I was reading on the site. I think I might possibly get don't quote me on this, but I might get an invite back without going to one of the regional events because of the Podium last year.
Makes sense.
But I think it's Sacramento's one in California and the other one's in Miami. So I'm debating on whether I want to go down to the Miami one. It's I think it's almost right after the Open finishes. So it's just going to be very just heavy CrossFit training going into it. But if my work schedule allows me to travel, I might try to pop down for the Miami one. I think it's early April.
Gotcha. So, outside, obviously, we already talked about it a little bit, but obviously you're a big fan of CrossFit. So outside of Tough Mudder X, what do you think of CrossFit for preparing people for just regular OCR, not necessarily Tough Mudder X?
I think, at least for me, and I'll just talk about Tough Mudder X really quick. When I went into that last year, I kind of knew how the breakdown was. I was all right, I just want to make top 10. I'm coming out here. I was really lucky because I think in my first heat, we did heats, right? I was with Hunter, and I was like, oh, this is awesome, right? I'm get around with Hunter in the first heat. Everyone I think knew Hunter was the one to beat or was the favorite, right? And so I think we were heat 3 or 4, I forget. A couple heats went before us, and so I was like, all right, if I'm within a minute or 2 of Hunter, I'm gonna be solid, to make the qualifying for the top 10. And that's exactly what I did. I got second in that heat, and it was just a really good, benchmark going into the finals. But my whole thing was, back to your original question, it's what's your goal, right? Is your goal to come out and try to make a podium in every sparring race that you enter, Savage, OCR World Championships, any of that? I would say CrossFit probably isn't the best base or foundation for you for obstacle course racing then. Or is your goal to come out and be able to, finish the races, go burpee free, be in good enough shape to do so, look good when doing it, and then be able to go and, move some weight in the gym and just be functionally fit? Then I would say, yeah, CrossFit's a great foundation. It's just kind of, understanding what your goal is. When I went to TMX, my goal was to be top 10. It just happened that, the way that everything worked out, I was able to finish third. But I would have been really happy just making the finals, top 10, and walking away there with all those great athletes. So I think it's just evaluating what your goal is. If you look at all the top OCR athletes in the sport, especially now, that probably wasn't true maybe 3 years ago, definitely not 5 years ago. They all have endurance backgrounds, whether it's running or cycling, I would say, for the most part. People like Ryan Atkins he was doing 24-hour enduro mountain bike races before Spartan race, right? The guy was used to going 24 hours straight on grueling, taxing events. His wife, Lindsay, was an all-star cross-country athlete, mountain biker herself, and cross-country, great cross-country skier. Her sister, Lindsay Webster's sister, is national level cross-country skier. Marco Bedard and Claude Gabou, both in your book, both phenomenal biathletes, right? And another endurance sport. And Hobie Call, we can go down the list. Robert Killian, Ryan Kent, all of them come from endurance backgrounds. And a lot of the new females on the scene, Faye Stenning and stuff, they have cross-country running endurance backgrounds. If you want to excel in the sport of OCR and you want to toe the line with those guys, I would say that you should start running. And if you're a kid and you're younger or you're a parent, get your kids involved in cross-country and the endurance sports to really prep them for it. But if you're someone more like myself that you want to go out and have fun and be semi-competitive in your age group and be able to go, do an OCR one day and then go into a CrossFit competition or weightlifting competition and jump into a triathlon and go do other stuff, I would say, CrossFit could be a great base. The training varies so much with CrossFit that it's allowed me personally to go jump into all different types of sports and do well. I'm not going to excel in any one, but I have fun, and there's very few things I come across that I can't do, right? I can't run with Ryan Atkins for an entire race, but I can get through all the obstacles, right? So I think it's just evaluating what your goals are.
Yeah, that was a great answer. I know in some of the emails we had going back and forth, you were talking about, internal pressure and the pressure to perform. You want to share some of your insights on that before we move forward?
Yeah, I mean, there is pressure definitely to perform. I'm a very driven person, and I put pressure on myself. A lot of people, probably like you said, had no expectation. I was a nobody at TMX. And I, when I was standing there and looking at all these guys, Sam Dancer, CrossFit Games athlete, the guy deadlifts over 600 pounds. He's a stud, right? But then I'm looking at the style event and I'm like, I should beat him in this. This is something that's more wheelhouse for me and I should beat him. And I should be close to Hunter, or semi-close to Hunter. And so, but I was probably the only one out there thinking that. Everyone else, was probably pegging other people to do very, very well, and a lot of people did. But that's just internal pressure that I put on myself to perform. But then again, it's kind of keeping it all within reason because I'm not a professional athlete. I don't get to sleep 8 to 10 hours a day, train in the middle of the day. My training is at 6 a.m. in the morning, done by 8 a.m. And then if I get another session in, it's super late at night, past 7 o'clock at night. And so just knowing, like I said, my goal was top 10, and I would have been happy with top 10. But even when I go out, OCR Worlds or anything, it's more of I put a time on a race. I'm if I finish this course in this time, I'll be happy. And so I think setting personal goals like that and not really trying to peg yourself against another athlete because all the athletes are different. Everyone has a different lifestyle and different they're just different, right? And so I think when you set personal goals and ballparking, all right, I want to average 7:30 splits on this course or 6:30 splits on this course, and you go back and you review, on your watch or your whatever you're wearing, the track you're running afterwards, and if you were able to do that, that should be a pat on the back, right, that you hit your goal. So, yeah, that's kind of just how I operate, and I encourage others to do so like that as well versus, trying to peg yourself against others. It's more pegging yourself against your own expectations.
I think that's good advice. You can't control what other people are going to do on the course. So some other people may have a great day, some people may have a bad day. But the only performance you really have any control over is yourself. So, comparing yourself to previous versions of yourself is, I think an absolute great way to set targets and goals for yourself moving forward. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and that's so true. And, prime example, I forgot what year it was. I think it was Palmerton, the Spartan race, 2016. And I remember I passed Glenn Rax, is it Rax or Race, Glenn on the double sandbag carry at that Spartan race. And anyone that knows Glenn is like one of the best runners in the sport. Like, he'd crush me in any running, like, event ever. And I think I finished a couple spots ahead of him in that race. But that double sandbag here, and I, like, talking to him after the race, I remember he cramped up really bad, and, like, just, it was a horrible race for him. And it's like, you know, but he wasn't even on my radar. I wasn't, like, trying to beat Glenn in that race or anything. And then he came out and crushed Spartan Worlds, I think it was this past year or 2 years ago. Did phenomenally well on a mountain course with some really heavy carries. He just had a bad day that day. Like you said, it's any given Sunday, someone can have a bad day, so you shouldn't be pegging it against other people, but pegging it against yourself. And if you just stay within yourself, right, we can only control what we do. We can only control our own thoughts and our own actions. Then that's the best you can, you know, ask of yourself and the best that you can do. And I think at the end of the day, you'll be a more fulfilled person by achieving your own personal goals versus goals that others are setting for you outside of your own, you know, capabilities, or that you're setting against other people versus just setting against yourself.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I love that about OCR, that, you know, there's just so many variables that people have bad days. I don't say all the time, but it happens, right? Like even some of the best people have bad days, which is why I think the sport's so interesting. So, all right. So, talking about regular OCR, are we going to see you on the start line of any regular OCRs this year? Not Tough Mudder X and not CrossFit.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard not to probably get me to do at least a couple. I think I'm already registered for the DC Spartan Sprint in Nats Park, and plan on doing that both in the elite heat and then running it again with a group of friends. So I run a CrossFit endurance class at my gym, and so far I think we have like almost 32 people signed up for it to come out, and a lot of them it'll be their first obstacle course race. A lot of them it'll be their second. So
which gym do you work out of?
CrossFit Wrestling.
Okay.
So I coach there, and I've started more of an endurance class that meets 3 times a week, and it's non-barbell, and all of the classes usually are 30-plus minute of continuous work. So kind of getting you more into that, how in running there's like LSD runs, long, slow distance runs. They're more those grit style workouts that they're not, the intensity we tone back a little bit, but we pull out that duration, because most of our class normal CrossFit workouts on the long end, it would be 20 minutes. But usually they're in that 8 to 12 minute range, higher intensity. So my classes are a little lower intensity, that 30 to 45 minute range, trying to drag out that timeline that people's heart rates are in that 60 to 75% effort range. Right. But so I'm doing a Spartan Sprint in DC. I might jump in the Palmerton. It's just one of my favorite races. It's pretty local for me, and I have family up in the Pennsylvania area up there. And then I know Bone Frog and Savage have a couple races coming in to the Virginia DC area that I also might do. I did a Bone Frog a couple years back and absolutely loved it. Same with Savage. So wouldn't be surprised if I signed up last minute for one or both of those. Cool.
So take us through a week in the life of Kevin, right? Like, what is your, day-to-day training / rest, periodization or work training life balance look like?
Yeah, sure. Okay, let's start Monday morning. Alarm goes off at 5:35. Roll out of bed. Jump into some sweatpants and stuff right now and a warm winter coat and drive on over to the CrossFit gym, CrossFit Wrestling. I live about 2.5 miles from the gym, so that's kind of nice. Usually get there right around 6 or so, warm up for about maybe 15, 20 minutes, and then kind of get into it. So usually Mondays are, as of late, have been mostly snatch work to start off the day. So Olympic lifting, snatch skill work, followed by some complexes or working up to a heavy single. And then Mondays have also been muscle up work as of late. So a lot of just work on the rings, whether it's muscle ups with heart rate raised or going for larger sets, followed by some metabolic Metcon, anywhere from probably 12 to 20 minute Metcon to close out the morning. Then I just kind of, from there, jump. If I have time, I can run back home really quick, shower, and head to work, which is also about 1.5 miles, 2 miles from my house, or head right into work, shower at work, and then I'm in work right around 9 o'clock and work a full day. Usually get out of work on a Monday closer to 7. I front load my weeks, try to get a lot of stuff done at work. And usually I try to make it back. I usually go to Lifetime Fitness locally and go and hit some more strength work in the evening. And that could be like weighted pull-ups, back squats, stuff like that. Usually no metabolic stuff in the evening. It's more strength-based. That's a Monday. Tuesday is a mix of actual more running, so I'll have a running session in the evening on Tuesdays. And in the morning, it's usually a mix of just two Metcons, so back-to-back Metcons, CrossFit-style workouts, and then a running workout in the evening. And the running workout is usually, I've been doing it on the treadmill now, because the CrossFit programming I'm on, they want us doing it on the True Form Runner, like kind of that curved treadmill. That's what CrossFit likes to use in the regionals.
I fucking hate that
and at the games. Oh my God! You want to talk about painful? Just pain. Doing intervals on that thing is real pain, but it helps you, I think, with your form a little bit, and but it's very painful. So I've been trying to get better on that, and trying to learn to keep my heart rate down on that, moving into other movements that are in CrossFit. So that's usually Tuesday nights. And then Wednesdays, it's usually in the morning, like Monday in the morning it's snatches. Wednesdays is usually cleans. So clean or clean and jerk work in the morning, followed by a Metcon. And then Wednesday night would be some more strength. Maybe it's another squat or a deadlift. So if I did back squats on Monday, it's typically a front squat on Wednesdays. Maybe some deadlifts Wednesday if I'm not squatting. It just kind of varies by the week, but some strength stuff in the evening. Thursdays is a complete rest day. Oh, I forgot to mention. So Tuesdays, the reason it's only running in the evening, I run, and then I coach Tuesday night. So I coach from 8 to 9 o'clock on Tuesday night, so I get done coaching at 9. And then same thing on Thursdays. Thursdays is a complete rest day, but I coach Thursday evenings, 8 to 9 o'clock. So after a full work day, go coach from 8 to 9. And then Friday, it's usually I try to squeeze everything in just Friday morning, so it's usually just some type of strength work, whether it's a deadlift or a squat or something, Friday morning. A Metcon with some accessory work. So accessory work could be like working on strict handstand push-ups, handstand walks, core work, mobility, stuff like that, for accessory stuff on Friday morning. And then Friday night I kind of like to have off, go out with friends, and just kind of enjoy myself. And then Saturday is usually like my biggest day of the week. I'll usually do the class workout at our it's nice to jump into a class workout with the entire CrossFit community. So I usually do that on Saturdays, and it's usually a partner workout, which is always fun. Followed by I coach my class Friday morning then, and then it's open gym at our gym Friday late morning, the early afternoon, and I'm usually in there with a group of people that I don't get to see during the week just because of our schedules, and we do a big group training session for about 2 hours that encompasses some strength, maybe a partner Metcon and some other maybe a second Metcon followed by some accessory work. And then we get brunch usually every Saturday afternoon together. And then Sunday is usually a complete off day. I might go swim. And by swim, I mean I'll jump in the pool and swim until I hit a mile. Just nice and easy mix of free back and breaststroke, just to kind of shake things out and maybe sit in the hot tub on a Sunday.
Nice. Sounds like a busy schedule there.
Yeah, there's not a lot of free time, I wish I had more free time, but we'll see after the CrossFit Open's over. I think I really do plan on turning things back and maybe trying out some new sports here. I've been talking with some people that are really big into mountain biking and got into it a little bit when I was living in Colorado. And so I actually have a mountain bike trail really close to me here that I'm going to try to get onto with these guys in the spring a little bit more after the CrossFit Opens is over. Then one of my good friends, Mike, is getting into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And so kind of want to maybe go try my hand in that a little bit.
Yeah, that's always fun to wrestle around. That if you're not used to it, that'll spike your heart rate quicker than anything, right? Because you just have no... I remember the first couple of times I did some combatives type training, my heart rate would just spike because you've no idea of how hard to push yourself and kind of that what energy level you should be exerting to try to get out of certain moves. It's definitely a workout in addition to learning a cool skill. So.
Oh yeah, totally. And I love finding, and that's one cool thing. I just shout out to CrossFit. It's there's so many things in CrossFit that if you want to be good at CrossFit, you got to learn so many different movements that you're continuously finding something you suck at. And I love that, right? I love finding something I'm horrible at, which I would probably suck at BJJ right when I start. And so like getting just, your ass kicked and, but then if you work at it, especially in those earlier phases, you see like such improvements so quickly. And then once, like in CrossFit or OCR, if you've been doing it for years, it's harder to see those bigger jumps, in improvement. And that sometimes gets challenging. You feel like you're plateauing, and it's just it's so much harder to cut that extra 1 minute off of a run, or even 30 seconds, then you're trying to get just 10 seconds better. Where in the beginning, you're improving by minutes. Or in CrossFit, your lifts are going up by 10, 20, 30 pounds over the course of a couple months, and now it's like, oh my God, just to add 5 pounds to a lift is like a huge win. So starting from scratch and something new is always fun for me, and always humbling too, right? You get to learn a new sport, new types of athletes, and the way of doing something completely new.
Yeah. So since you teach a lot of CrossFit classes, I know one of the common questions I get is, how do I get better at doing a muscle up? So what's right? So like let's going from someone who, let's assume the athlete we're talking about can't do any muscle ups. Right, like what's your teaching method to take them from 0 to 1?
0 to 1. Are we talking muscle ups on the bar or muscle ups on the rings?
I guess bar's easier, right?
Okay. Yep. Well, yeah. I mean, if you ask different people, I personally think the bar is easier. But the muscle up was in TMX actually, or for the guys at least. They, on the last wall, you kind of had to do a muscle up to get over that wall. I would say, you really have to work on the strict pull up. If you can't do at least probably 2 strict chest to bar pulls where you're touching your sternum to that bar, we're going to need to work on strength a little bit. But if you can do 1, but I would probably say 2 of those in a row, you have the strength. Then it's kind of working on the kip. And so it's kind of unlocking the shoulders, getting a huge swing. And then in CrossFit, like a lot of sports, everything comes from the hips, right? The hips generate all that power. And so as you're pulling forward and your arms are fully extended and you're kind of throwing your hips to the bar, you want to think, I'm throwing my hips to the bar, squeeze the glutes, and then big pull with the arms, and you do a sit-up and you throw that chest on top of the bar. And if you can get your chest on top of the bar, then you can just kind of dip yourself up. And I know I'm talking, it's a lot easier if you're actually showing it. But I would say work the strict pull-up and work on using your hips to generate the force to get yourself up there. There should be a moment, if you're doing it really correctly, that you almost feel weightless, where you could kind of pull your hands off the bar and regrip the bar really quickly and still be able to do a muscle up, because it's your hips generating the power to get you up and not so much your upper back or biceps.
Good technique tips there. Any specific exercises people should be doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think anything that help with pull-ups, right? So dumbbell bent over rows, I'm a big fan of doing, just bent over with 1 dumbbell. So kind of it's a unilateral movements, because it's going to really fry up your core as well. So try not to rotate your hips, and just rowing it almost like you're holding like a suitcase down at your side, rowing that right up into the chest is a great one. And then banded pull-ups. And then you can even work on using the band. So you put your foot in the band, bands wrapped around the pull-up bar, and you start doing banded strict pull-ups. And then if you want to try and not hit yourself in the face, that I've been guilty of doing or trying to demo it to certain clients, have your foot in that band and actually work on the kip and doing a muscle up, and you can do a banded muscle up, where the band is assisting you to get up. But again, proceed with caution, because that band might slip out from your foot and come wailing you in the face. But it's that's a good one to do. The kind of, the band gives that assistance. But I would say strict pull-ups. If you don't have strict pull-ups, do strict banded pull-ups, as well as dumbbell rows or barbell rows. I'm a big fan of the single dumbbell row, not with yourself propped up on a bench, but kind of just hinged over, almost like you're setting up for a deadlift, and just doing it one dumbbell at a time on each side.
Right on. Big fan of those movements also. Let's see what else we got here. So any advice for those looking to run Tough Mudder X that maybe didn't get to run it last year? So probably mostly like OCR athletes transitioning into TMX.
For the OCR athletes, I'll answer both. For for the OCR athletes, I think if you notice, so Hunter is just an athlete, right? I mean, he's OCR. He also competed in the CrossFit Open last year and did very well in California. So he is like a very true hybrid. But then we had some other OCR athletes out there that got crushed by the sandbags. In the CrossFit world, I think we had 95-pound sandbags for the guys, and they were like 60 or 65 for the women at TMX. And when we got there, we were told that they were going to be 130 or 135 or 125 for the guys and like 95 for the women, and they actually backed it down substantially. But for the OCR athletes, I would say get comfortable moving sandbags and heavier weighted objects, much heavier than you're going to see in any probably OCR event. Sparring race and some others, it's a 45 or 50-pound sandbag. Sometimes you get that double sandbag, but you put it on your shoulders and you're walking with it. You're not moving it from the ground up to your shoulder or ground the shoulder to overhead repeatedly. And doing that repeatedly really spikes that heart rate. And I think that's where we saw a lot of the OCR athletes at the first TMX last year kind of fall apart. Was when we hit the sandbag clean in the race. So I would say, get comfortable coming into a movement like that with a heavier object for guys anywhere from 90 to 100 pounds, women probably in the 50 to 70 pound range, and coming in, heart rate's elevated, and doing something with that sandbag for reps, for about 15 reps is what it was last year. Who knows what it'll be this year, but, whether it's cleans, or taking the sandbag from your shoulder overhead, maybe it's even throwing it over your shoulder this year. They could throw all this different stuff at us. CrossFit has those sandbag D balls, which we actually did have at TMX, but we just had to pick them up and set them on top of a log. This year, who knows? Maybe they have you pick it up and throw it over your shoulder like they do in the CrossFit, and like they did in the CrossFit Games and a lot of CrossFit workouts now. So kind of a sandbag D ball, whatever you want to call it, over the shoulder could be something that comes up this year. And that was much heavier. I think that D ball weighed 120 or something for the guys last year at TMX. So that's my advice for the OCR athletes. And then on the flip side, for more of the CrossFit athletes and maybe strength athletes, it's being able just to keep up on the running. You probably weren't able to see it very well on the film, but like I kind of hung back until we hit the sandbag cleans. I think I came into the cleans in the finals, I don't know, 5th or 6th place, and came out of the cleans in 4th, right behind Isaiah, and made up, time there. So it's just, but again, my running, if I would have ran harder to be up front, trying to keep up with Ryan or a Hunter, I would have just redlined. And so every athlete's different. I knew I'd be able to move through the cleans and the other sandbag work and like some of the other fitness obstacles like the pull-ups and stuff and keep my heart rate lower when maybe the more pure OCR athletes were going to spike their heart rates there. So I just try to keep my heart rate consistent throughout the entire race, knowing yes, I can run faster if I wanted to, especially it's only a mile course, right? I can run up there, I have about 5:20 is my mile PR. So I can run really fast, but then it's like you don't want to run too fast and blow up on a movement, and then vice versa, run really fast and get to a movement and not be able to do it, and then you blow up on doing sandbag cleans, and then you're tanked the rest of the race. So TMX was a really good example of, I think, being that hybrid athlete where in between obstacles you have to be running, but you don't necessarily have to be the fastest one on the course, right? Hunter, I don't think, is the fastest one on that course from a running standpoint, and he also isn't probably the fastest when it comes to moving the sandbags. He's also taller. He has a longer range of motion to go, so he's actually at a disadvantage there. But altogether, he's the best built athlete overall, and definitely was that day. So I think it's kind of that combination. So if you're the OCR athlete, work on the weights. If you're more the strength athlete, work on the running, and that's kind of my advice for that.
Yeah, very good advice there. Working on your weaknesses, absolutely. And then pacing yourself, also some great advice. I think you were right up next to Ryan up until the very end. Were you not? Weren't you at the last obstacle at the same time?
Yeah. So, he was ahead of me, and Isaiah, going back to like the sandbag, like I said, I came out at fourth. Isaiah was third, and then we went into the crawl and actually passed him on the crawl before the pull-ups. We hit the funky monkey one at the same time, and he actually slipped off of it. I didn't see him slip. I just heard like a bunch of people yelling, and when I looked back, he wasn't there. So I assumed he had fallen, and so in my head I'm thinking, okay, well, Kevin, you're in third. Don't F this up is what I'm thinking. And I saw Ryan, so when I got to the wall ball station, Ryan was still doing wall balls. So, like, I was like, oh, I'm right behind Ryan Atkins. And I'm like, maybe I can actually catch Ryan here. So he finished the wall balls. Like, he was finishing up as I got there, climbed over the wall. There was a farmer's carry, and then we did Kong. And, you know, I probably lost some time on that one because I didn't want to fail it. And I played it more safe, and I was shifting out my grip where, you know, Atkins has, like, the grip of 10 men. The guy's grip is unbelievable. And he just blasted through that, and I took my time kind of focusing on don't fail. And then we got through the shoulder to overhead, and then we hit that ramp wall. And there's a whole backstory to that ramp wall where people were testing that wall out. They had the ropes down beforehand, and especially on the guy side, and no one was really making it up the wall. I think Hunter made it up, Benny Gifford made it up, and Ryan made it up like when we walked the course beforehand. I didn't attempt it because I didn't want to get negative thoughts in my head that I couldn't make it up that wall. But a bunch of people were trying. I know Matt Kempson was trying. Nicholas, I think, tried, and they were just falling into the water. And I'm like, I don't want to have those negative thoughts in my head. They eventually lowered the ropes for that ramp wall for the preliminary heats, and so most people were able to get over it. But then going into the finals, they left the women's where it was, but they raised the guys up again. And I think Ryan ended up failing it. So when I hit the wall, I saw him climbing out of the water. I was like, this isn't what I should have been thinking, but in my head I'm thinking, crap, Ryan failed this. That's not boding well for me because in practice he ran up the wall and got over the wall without touching the rope. Which like no one else was doing, and Ryan was able to get over the wall without using the rope, and here he is climbing out of the water because he failed it, and the rope is hanging. I didn't see him fail. I just saw him coming out of the water, and I wasn't really thinking at the time. I was just kind of prepping myself to go. He like ran back. There was like a start line for like an obstacle like that where you had to, if you failed, you had to run back, cross the start or the start line, and then retry. And like he retried, but he kind of just jumped. It was 3 attempts, and then you got to run around the obstacle. I didn't know what attempt he was on, but I guess that was his third, where he ran back to the start line. Ryan hit the wall, like just nonchalantly, jumped in the water and hopped out, started running, and then it kind of clicked in my head, like, shit, that was his third attempt. He's going like around the obstacle now, so I just went. Somehow was able to make it. I heard a lot of people, the majority of people all failed it after me 3 times. And then, yeah, we were kind of almost I was behind him a little bit going into the last obstacle. We did this D-ball onto the stump and then into the muscle-up. I just wasn't able to catch him. So I finished a couple seconds behind him there in the final. But it was fun to kind of have it come down to that. And that'll probably be the closest I'm ever to Ryan in a running race, to be honest with you. So it was a fun experience. Ryan's a good friend. So not disappointed at all to finish behind Ryan and especially Hunter there in the first.
Yeah, so absolutely great story and good advice here coming from Kevin, considering how close he was to almost coming in second, so which is even more impressive, especially considering the field you were up against. I know you've been doing some behind-the-scenes work for OCR World Championships. I know you were kind of working there this past year when we saw each other in Canada.
Yep.
You still doing some work for them through your company?
Yeah, so I work for a marketing agency, and so we work with a lot of organizations nationally with a lot of like branded merchandise and stuff like that, and still working with Adrian, and yeah, so hopefully we'll be doing more stuff with him, everything from, you know, apparel and stuff, maybe the medals and some other stuff for this year. You know, Adrian's really kind of growing the organization, which is awesome to see, and the great thing about the company I work for is that we do have that international presence, and so we're able to kind of, I think, support him as he grows internationally, especially to the UK this year. He does have the Enduro down in Australia, which we're going to help out with a little bit, and then also up in Vermont for the NORAM champs. So yeah, working still kind of not so much like behind the scenes, but as a partner, I would say, of Adventure LLC, the parent company that kind of hovers over all that. And then they just purchased a marathon up in New York as well. So hopefully be collaborating and helping out on the marathon as well in October.
Cool. Any teasers you can give us or stuff that's awesome that's coming down the pipe?
Ooh, teasers.
I'm sure most of it's
yeah, I can't say much. I do know there's going to be a really cool spectator-friendly, I'd say, viewing point in the UK. I think that's going to be really cool and something a little different. So look forward to that.
Okay, that's a good one. I like that. All right, before we get going, anything else you want to talk about before we take off?
No, really quick. What does your schedule look like for the obstacle course racing? And also actually maybe you talked about it on one of the first podcasts for Strength and Speed, but I think TMX kind of gets back to your background a little bit, Evan. Strength and speed and the name itself, is you got to be strong, but you can't sacrifice too much strength for speed, and then you can't sacrifice too much speed for strength. I'd like to hear your philosophy. And are you training for TMX? Because it seems like that'd be something that that's kind of in your wheelhouse as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, so after World's Toughest Mudder 2014, I started just getting more and more into endurance OCR. So I have tipped the balance heavily towards endurance OCR. So I've lost a lot of strength from 2014. I cannot do anything near what I could do in 2014. If Tough Mudder X would have been around then, I would have been all about it. Based off my last couple years of training, and I also ripped my pec in last February. So like I bet when I bench 135, like it, I'm getting close to 10 reps, and that's about it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's about it. Luckily, you don't have to do too many chest movements in OCR. But yeah, my strength has I've tipped the balance heavily back towards endurance. So I'm not doing Tough Mudder X. I'm continuing to doing ultra OCR type stuff. Other than that, I got a lot of Conquer the Gauntlets coming up. Still trying to figure out my toughest. We were talking about this a little bit before the podcast started, but I might be missing Toughest Mudder South, and I might go to Toughest Mudder UK. I got a work trip to Germany, and I think I'm going to turn that into a work trip / vacation / race trip, and do like Germany vacation, go to UK, race, and then probably like hit up Ireland or someplace else for a couple days, and then head home.
Yeah, I mean, really quick, Tough Mudder, man, they've been doing a really good job, I think, of like almost shifting the company, right? I know this is a little bit behind the scenes too, but I went up to close out 2017 twice to New York to go meet with their boot camp people that are, I don't know if you've heard, but they're opening Tough Mudder Boot Camp, which is like their own gyms. And so I actually went up and spoke with Catherine Botel and David Spindler up there, who are kind of heading that up for Tough Mudder. Catherine came over from Flywheel and about possibly opening up a DC location. Things just timing-wise just don't work out for me right now to, kind of run and open a gym on the side of my full-time job and coaching and still trying to, dabble in CrossFit and OCR. It's just too much at once. But really looking forward to them kind of launching into that space and, kind of competing with CrossFit gyms, Orange Theory Fitness, all those boutique fitness studios on top of, them really putting more fire and arrows behind TMX and kind of creating a competitive landscape within the Tough Mudder community now, which was never really there. And you've been very involved with it, except outside of World's Toughest, right? It was always kind of, they always pride themselves on these being events, and it's a obstacle and a challenge, not a race. But now they have the elite heats, and they've kind of broken it out into, I think I saw an article, it was like 3 different pillars, like fittest, fastest, and something like that.
Toughest. It was fittest, fastest, and toughest, I think it was.
So very cool to kind of see almost like a rebranding of the company moving forward and get kind of meshing, some different sports as well, like kind of pulling in more of a fitness style aspect into their organization.
Yeah, absolutely. They've done huge things in the last 2 years. I mean, it's impressive. it was overwhelming last year. Like I felt like every couple of weeks they're like, here's a new series, here's a new championship, here's a new, and you're like, I don't have any more room in my schedule. You've maxed it out. So
room and time, and it's like we don't have so much time to do these things, but it's really kind of cool, and it's great for the sport, right? I think it's overall just great for the sport. I think it's also going to be really cool if they really hone in on the TMX side, where you're going to get, I think, different athletes that, aren't making maybe even like myself, that aren't going to make the podiums in the fastest and the toughest series. Like, there's no way I'm going out and running 100 miles in World's Toughest Mudder. But, on a short course that involves a lot of fitness elements, it's going to give different athletes, I think, an opportunity to kind of step up and shine. I think that's going to be really cool to kind of grow the community and expand to different levels of athletes all throughout, and maybe even give people that are intimidated getting off the couch to go do a Tough Mudder or a Spartan or another OCR race that's 5 miles, 10 miles. Oh, I can go do a 1 mile course. It's kind of like an extended Ninja Warrior, esque thing that's open to the public to kind of sign up and go do maybe, is pretty cool. So very excited to kind of see what Tough Mudder does this year. And then I think it's only going to be, they're raising their standards. So I'm sure Spartan Race and the others are going to be, coming up with new ideas to raise theirs as well. So it's very exciting for the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like we talked about, like you were talking about, you'll see a little more of a specialization on the top level. Like the one athlete standing on all three of those fittest, fastest, toughest podiums is going to be less likely. Besides, obviously, someone like Ryan. But
yeah, but even like someone like Ryan, like if I had a bet, I would say we might not see him back on the TMX podium with some new athletes. Like, and to be fully candid, like there's going to be athletes like myself that are just more on the hunter level that are going to come in, I think, and really kind of do really well in this TMX style course. So I would be shocked if we were seeing like Atkins back on that podium. I think Hunter will be. I think that is Hunter's like bread and butter right there. But I think there's going to be some athletes that come in that weren't there last year that are going to push Hunter and push like Corinna and Cassidy over on the female side as well. That could do really, really well.
Yeah, it should be exciting. I mean, like we talked about at the beginning, they had such a short turn between announcement of event and then event day. Yeah, it was crazy. So now that it's been shown on TV, it's been shown on CBS. You've now touched a lot more people, and now that the events have been scheduled in advance, people can tailor their training appropriately to that. And like any sport, every year that goes by, the competition gets a little bit better. You're always edging that top level up a little bit. So,
yep,
yeah,
looking forward to it though. It's gonna be fun to watch.
Absolutely. Cool. Any final shout outs to family, friends, sponsors, brands?
No,
anything else you want to
I don't have any sponsors, so no one to really shout out there. Just my CrossFit community, both from Colorado and back here in Virginia and DC, and the obstacle course racing community. All just both of those I think are great communities. It's part of the reason why I still do these events and participate in CrossFit. It's the community, right? It's the people. So all my friends out there, thank you. And, kind of back to the TMX thing, it was kind of surreal for me, at least, to kind of go to events after TMX and have people come up to me and congratulate me on the performance and stuff. So that was really cool, and I appreciate that, and I want to thank all you guys that came up to me afterwards and congratulated me. It did mean a lot, or does mean a lot. So just that, and thanks my family for, just supporting me, and my CEO at my company for kind of giving me a little flexibility to kind of still go off on a whim and do some of this stuff.
Awesome. And if you have been over to the Strength and Speed website recently, make sure you head over there. We recently added Bleg mitts, so Deanna Bleg's specialized glove for ultra-ocr. So it's basically like a mitten and allows you to take your hand out of the mitten very easily and do obstacles.
Nice.
That's now available on the website. My book is also available on the website, so if you want to hear about Kevin's training and his thoughts on fitness from a couple years ago before he was a Tough Mudder X podium finisher, you can go pick up a copy of my book off the website. And then plus we have all the usual stuff, apparel, and actually also just added Jason Rulo's Neptune Heat, which is basically a water-wicking shirt that has pouches for heat, those chemical hand warmer, those heat things, keep you warm during toughest and World's Toughest Mudder. So check that out. And then again, Kevin, thank you not only for coming on the podcast, but again, thanks for putting me in touch with all these people in the OCR industry. And thanks for being part of your original Team Strength and Speed 2014 OCR World Championships. We didn't do so well at the team event. Our fourth teammate let me down, lost his band on the rigs.
Hey, it was a ton of fun, and Evan, I thank you so much for just including me in that, and no worries, and I hope I'm sure I'll see you at OCR World and stuff, but I hope we cross paths at some other events this year.
Absolutely. It's been good talking to you, Kevin.
You too, man. We'll talk soon.
Later.
Bye.